56% of all corporate Bitcoin buys happened in the last few months. I just can't see the stair step up. The thing that's most likely to happen is what inflicts the most pain on the most number of people. And that is that everyone misses the boat. It seems like we're reaching corporate FOMO, we're going to get nation state FOMO, and then retail FOMO. And all of that's going to mean a very steep adoption curve.
샘슨 모우는 비트코인 업계에서 매우 잘 알려진 인물로 특히 비트코인 최대주의자로서 활동하고 있는 대표적인 인물 중 하나입니다. 그는 블록체인 기술 전반보다는 오직 비트코인 자체의 가치와 철학에 집중하며 전통 금융 시스템에 대한 대안을 주장하는 입장을 고수하고 있습니다. 그가 창립한 회사의 목표는 비트코인 채택을 전 세계적으로 확대하는 것으로 특히 국가 단위의 비트코인 채택을 추진하고 있으며 엘살바도르의 비트코인 법정화폐 채택을 공개적으로 지지하고 협력한 바 있습니다. 이런 그가 비트코인의 본질적 가치가 어떻게 평가되고 있는지 조명하며 비트코인은 이제 단순한 투자의 수단이 아니라 금융 시스템의 대전환을 이끄는 핵심 자산으로 자리 잡고 있다고 얘기합니다.
We're still waiting to hear exactly how much Bitcoin the US has right now because we don't even have that clear picture. And I believe a good chunk of the 200,000 coins purported to be in the US Strategic Bitcoin Reserve actually belong to Bitfinex. So if that is the case, the US could have far less than 100,000 coins.
Yeah, and then they'd have to go scrambling, right? But, I mean, just in the last 6 months or so, I mean, we're seeing headlines from everywhere, right? Taiwan, Pakistan, India, South Korea just got a pro-Bitcoin president, Poland as well. Nigel Farage in the UK, it looks like he might be coming in soon, and he's just been pro-Bitcoin. So do any of these countries really pique your interest?
I would say so, and we're particularly interested in some of those ones that you mentioned, and we do have some engagements there, albeit a bit early. But it's all very promising, and I think the lineup of interest is just paving the way for an Omega candle. Like, given you know all of these entrants are going to do something, it's really a question of when they act, and if they're all acting in the same time period, like in the same week, in the same month. And I think that's going to have a significant impact on the price.
Yeah, we could be seeing fireworks. It does seem as if it'll all probably happen all at once, right? And then we wake up in a different world.
Yeah. The biggest challenge, I think, is the governments are always distracted by something else.
To be able to send a transaction, receive one, and use it as money. It's really magical when you don't just see it as a number on a screen, but are able to trade it for an actual real life good, right? This thing it's money. You should use it. And it is also amazing how Bitcoin meets you where you need it, right? Us in the West, in developed countries, you need a proper store of value. In other countries, you need a proper medium of exchange. So Bitcoin can be many things to many people, but I think everyone should get comfortable with all these different uses of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would say in Western countries and more developed countries, it's probably going to tend to be more of an asset. You're going to see a lot of people's adoption of it, not as Bitcoin in a self-custodial Jade or cold card, but as something in their retirement portfolio or in a tax-advantaged account via an ETF or a Bitcoin treasury company. And in the developing world, you're going to see people storing it on their phone and hopefully on a hardware wallet, but using it more as a bearer asset and a cash instrument.
There's hundreds of millions of dollars being purchased on an almost daily basis. Why isn't the price exploding? So what do you have to say to all this?
I think there's probably some dimension of paper Bitcoin involved. There could be something shady happening. We just don't know. And it's the same as in the FTX case where we found out after the fact that they were selling Bitcoin that they didn't have. So it's possible, like some exchange and in some, the lesser known exchange is selling paper Bitcoin. And for some reason, there is not a run on that exchange yet. And that could contribute to this. The other theory is that it's simply OGs selling, but I don't know of any OGs that are selling, So it's difficult to really understand exactly what is going on. But I wouldn't rule out the possibility that there is some outright fraud and some exchanges taking advantage of this selling Bitcoin that does not exist. There just won't be demand for it unless they find a way to increase the yield, but then that comes with its own risks.
And so in the next 5 years, I mean, you said that countries are going to need to act fast, right? And we see these companies moving first. And we've got Jesse over at OnRamp saying that corporations will have over 50% of all the Bitcoin. Do you think that that is a realistic option, something that will play out in the future? And would that be good for Bitcoin if it was so?
You mean 50% of 21 million?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's difficult. I'm actually surprised that Strategy has close to 600,000 now. I would have thought they would have topped out at like 400 maybe, because the price would have went up a lot and they would be able to buy a lot less. But surprise, we're here. So, can companies get 10 million Bitcoin? First, no, because I think by my estimates, we've probably lost like 5 million coins. So there's probably maybe 16 million coins out there with a bit under 1 million to be mined still. So I would say maybe the best case scenario is corporations end up with 3 million coins, and you have governments with another few million, and then the rest is just held by individuals.
Yeah, and speaking of individuals, this treasury craze over the last 2 years, it sort of changed the dynamic of the conversation, right? I remember 2021, Bitcoin Twitter, it was more punk rock, it was more raucous, and now it's much more the suit coiners are here. How would you say that the culture has changed over the years that you've been in Bitcoin?
It's evolved, I would say. But I don't think it's reasonable to expect it's always going to be punk rock, or I prefer alternative rock, for forever and ever and ever. Like, if Bitcoin was to be valuable, it's inevitable that governments and corporations will want it, just like in human history. Anything that's valuable, people in power will want it. And they don't really get to dictate the creation of value. And they have, I guess you could say, with fiat, but that experiment is drawing to a close very rapidly. So we're going back to hard money, and everyone wants hard money, whether you're a pleb or a podcaster or a corporation or a nation state. That's just how it works. Money makes the world go around. Money is the base layer of civilization. So, having the suits come, so to speak, is an inevitability, and I think you have to be okay with that. Like, I think people often get mixed up in their anarchist libertarian view of what could be, but you're never really going to get rid of governments, at least not for the time being. But separation of money and state will result in smaller governments and less powerful governments and more powerful people, like more powerful plebs. So I think that is a good rebalancing of the situation. But yeah, it's going to evolve, and it will continue to evolve as people want Bitcoin. I don't see the corporate Bitcoin craze going away, simply because it is not about retail investors. Like, maybe there are some that target retail investors, and maybe that's not ideal, but by and large, if you look at Strategy, their target is not retail investors. They're targeting institutional grade investors. They're targeting the bond market, the fixed income markets, and it's very obvious with their preferred shares, right? And people can participate, but that's not who the main focus is. And I think if there are more treasury companies and they are targeting and trying to arbitrage between the legacy system and the new Bitcoin system, that is a good thing to have in play. And it's not necessarily bad for Bitcoin. It's just different. But if you think hyper Bitcoinization is inevitable, then this is part of that flow and that process.
Yeah, I agree with you that this is natural progression. Corporations are going to want it. They're going to want to protect their balance sheets, and that it just attracts a whole entire different group of people and mindsets into the space. And where Bitcoiners are known to be quite argumentative, and so you're going to see that pop up. But I think it's all par for the course. The real question here is what's the real mission, right? And the real mission, at least from my point of view, is to separate money from state. And when you are talking to representatives of governments, I mean, the power to print money is one of their greatest abilities, right? So do you ever get to that level of conversation of separating money from state? And have you ever seen them have the light bulb go on and realize, oh, Bitcoin could do that?
I would say no, we haven't really had those discussions, and I don't think it's a productive discussion to have. It's better to focus on the ways that Bitcoin can benefit them. Like if you look at Bhutan, I think a lot of the work on Bitcoin adoption there was driven by mining companies. I think Bitmain that went there early on, and I don't think they said, you know, if you mine Bitcoin, you'll separate money from state. It was more like you have excess energy, you can mine Bitcoin, and you know, do things, build the roads, build airports, whatever you need. And that's sort of the more practical, pragmatic approach, I would say, than saying this separates money from state and getting into that whole discussion. In fact, like most discussions we have as Jan 3, we try not to talk too much about the technicals and even things like the 21 million limit, unless we're saying it's scarce and trying to drive home a point there. But it's just framing Bitcoin as something that can help them with their current problems is far more likely to lead to the adoption of Bitcoin rather than trying to drive it by exerting our political or philosophical motives.
That's what we need. And zooming back out to America and the debt situation we have here, right? We just passed $37 trillion. The big, beautiful bill was passed, and Ray Dalio made a post today about how we're looking at government spending of $7 trillion a year, and on a good year, we'll bring in $5 trillion of tax revenue, right? This debt issue is a serious problem, and do you think that is the main catalyst that will cause this rapid repricing of Bitcoin?
Well, I think the rapid repricing is just waiting right now to happen. You have the ETFs, which eliminate all the barriers to Bitcoin acquisition. In previous cycles, you always had a bottleneck with exchanges onboarding people and companies, right? They would just get bottlenecked for months. But with ETFs, that bottleneck is gone. It's just money will flow in anytime. It's like a portal to TradFi money. And then you have the demand from all the corporations. You have nation states starting to line up and go through their own processes to allow for accumulation. So all of that combined with the current financial system and all of the money printing from past decades, more pertinently probably from the last 5 years, is all coming to a head. So even without the big beautiful bill, Bitcoin will explode to the upside. But the big beautiful bill just guarantees it, in fact. So nothing really stops the train, in the words of Lynn Alden. So yeah, I think the big beautiful bill should open some more eyes and accelerate the takeoff or the liftoff of the Bitcoin rocket. Because if you look at what Ray Dalio is posting, 7 trillion a year translates to about 64 million BTC. So 3-ish Bitcoin networks are going to be spent per year. So you can kind of figure out and reason out that Bitcoin is cheap right now at $110,000-ish a coin.
So do you think that if we were to get to 21 million, are we in this new stair step up grind for Bitcoin where we don't see the same bear markets as before and we're just moving up, or you're all in the S curve adoption, right?
Yeah, one of our team members did some analysis, and 56% of all corporate Bitcoin buys happened in the last few months. So that's not an indication that we're going to stair step up. And if you look at strategy alone, their acquisition is accelerating. So I just can't see the stair step up. Stair step up is a graceful ascent, and it violates the principle of max pain theory, which is the thing that's most likely to happen is what inflicts the most pain on the most number of people. And that is that everyone misses the boat because they weren't paying attention, or they thought Bitcoin was expensive, or they just thought Bitcoin is going to go away. So stair step up means everyone has time to learn. They're going to watch as it goes up, a little bit every day gradually for the next 21 years. And that's just unlikely in my book. It seems like we're reaching corporate FOMO, we're going to get nation state FOMO, and then retail FOMO. And all of that's going to mean a very steep adoption curve. I think we hit hyper-Bitcoinization somewhere at 0.5 million a coin, and we start devaluing gold and or demonetizing gold and real estate, which are both massive chunks of the global wealth. And Bitcoin goes up very quickly to 1 million, 2, 3. And at that point, nobody will take dollars for payment. So you won't be able to buy a TV or a car with fiat money. They'll say, oh, we want Bitcoin.
샘슨 모으는 비트코인의 진짜 랠리는 지금부터 시작된다고 전망하고 있습니다. 국가 부채, ETF, 기간 포모, 그리고 화폐와 국가의 분리라는 철학적 논점까지 다룹니다. 지금 벌어지고 있는 현상은 단순한 시장 사이클이 아니며 새로운 금융 시스템의 탄생, 그 핵심에 비트코인이 있다고 바라보고 있죠. 우리는 객관적인 시각으로 투자를 해야 하고 지금 당장만 보고 투자할 게 아니라 미래를 보고 투자를 해야겠죠. 010-2472-0429 전화번호로 탈개미 적어서 문자 보내주시면 2025년 비트코인과 코인 시장에 대한 분석, 정보들 공유해드리겠습니다. 현재 우리에게 중요한 것은 이러한 정보를 어떻게 활용할 것인가입니다. 지금까지 영상 시청해주셔서 감사하고요. 다음에 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.